Rich Eisen from NFL Network, also the Rich Eisen Show, with a comparison that he's been kind of thinking about relative to Jameis Winston, Browns quarterback.
He's the new Ryan Fitzpatrick of the National Football League.
Yeah, you're kind of right.
Where it could be the most entertaining game and the greatest offensive performance you could see, and then a total, cutting interception.
Yep.
And then he comes right back and just throws a 90-yard touchdown pass on you. And then he's his authentic self and he's captivating. It's Ryan Fitzpatrick all over again.
Let's welcome in Jake Burns from BrownsFilmBreakdown.com. And Jake, I get the whole national narrative. Jameis is entertaining. I'm not into that. When you look at him, though, there's big play and then there's turnovers. It's been that way for everybody except a small period of time where he was playing for Sean Payton with Drew Brees.
Yeah, there's no doubt that Jameis's ability, like you talked about before the show, he can do a lot of really strong things as a quarterback. The arm is very real. It's been that way since his high school, baseball and his elite quarterback 11 stuff that he did. I mean, it's always been very real, and you don't get selected first overall without all of those natural tools. And he had a great run at Florida State. Obviously, in his final year at Florida State, the turnover bug started to creep up in a pretty significant way. So that was a concern. And then it obviously manifested itself in Tampa in a way that wasn't conducive for them to give him a second contract. Now, obviously, Tom Brady amplified that decision at the time, but anytime you look at Jameis, you're going to see a guy who can make a lot of really wow throws, and he does. He will sit in the pocket, he will stare down the gun barrel, and make several really good, pinpoint accurate throws that work out really well for an offense. But what his detriment has consistently been is the mistakes, and his mistakes usually result in turnovers. His interception percentage is among the highest. It might be the single highest at 3.5%, I think, in the active NFL landscape. So the turnover bug has followed him. And what I have found interesting was he obviously had those 5 years in Tampa. He had the ridiculous season, his final year, where he threw for 35 touchdowns and threw for 30 interceptions, but he had a ridiculously high passing burden, over 600 pass attempts. And then that era ends after that 5th year, and he goes to New Orleans, and he has a stint over the course of 4 years as a backup for Drew, and then he doesn't really get the job and is kind of backing up Derek Carr, whatever. And he did have that run of 7 games to start, I believe. I don't know if it was the 21 season, where he had 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and it's like, okay, well, coming to Cleveland, it's like it's an interesting thing, Dave, because he hadn't started since the 2019 season, I believe. And it's like, okay, can he rewrite his career? Can he have a little bit of a Geno Smith sort of run here, where he, Geno got less opportunity in New York than Jameis did in Tampa, but he took those years as a backup, came out of it, became a better quarterback, and in his early 30s is like getting this run in Seattle that's been quite clearly productive. Now, it's not going that well this year, but the last 2 years have been good, right? Got a nice contract out of it. And with Jameis, the interest for me was like, yeah, he's lovable and the background stuff, and he's, got the quotes, and there's a lot there, but he hasn't had a chance to start for a prolonged period of time since the Tampa day. So I was pretty curious in seeing him at the end of this season to can he run it out here and show that 14-3 turnover ratio, touchdowns to interceptions in 2021? Was that real? Has he kind of lost that? And there have been moments where he's been really good. We can agree. I mean, the burden has been heavy. He's been operating without much of a run game, but that was the theory to me. Those Tampa Bay teams didn't run the ball well. Jaquiz Rodgers and late career Doug Martin and Peyton Barber, just not a good run group. And then they figured it out a little bit, obviously, when Brady came in, and they focused on Tristan Wirfs and some other offensive linemen. They got better up there, and they had a Leonard Fournette run, but they didn't do that with Jameis, and Jameis obviously got a little better, obviously, with with Alvin Kamara there in New Orleans when he got a run. So it's like, okay, could he come to Cleveland and be more of a play action based field manager, guy who's like got a nice run game and is able to like build off of that, and the burden is less, the opportunity is less, and the desire or the need, Dave, to make those tight window throws, like I got to drive the bus here to get us down the field, it leaves, and he's really just taking what's in front of him, and they're able to use run efficiency, et cetera, to like amplify this. And then when Jameis needs a third down throw or two, he can make them because he's got that ability. But since he's taken over, it's been him. The run game has been non-existent. That's a huge conversation that has to be talked about throughout the rest of this year. Their just inability to move the football with any efficiency on the ground. And then you have a game where he's throwing 60 times, dropping back 65 times, and that's just not conducive for any quarterback in the league. If that was a way to win games consistently, the Herberts and the Mahomes and the Josh Allens would be doing that. So they can't live in that world, and Jameis is going to continue. Like, he's just making a few mistakes here and there. And like, I think to the root of your question, he's not he has an opportunity here to audition that he's gotten rid of the turnover bug, but he can still do the things that made Jameis the most appealing quarterback in the 2015 draft, and et cetera, et cetera. Like show us that you have rid those things from maybe your early career. And as we've seen, it's just not gone. It's still a part of who he is. But I do think we could all agree that the burden on him has been pretty high as well. So I do think that it's an interesting thing to think about, of like, do they run another year of Jameis Winston as an opportunity to stay cheaper at the position, et cetera? Well, how about you try to put him in a less burdensome position to see if that stuff sort of takes care of itself that way? That's what I'm interested in, because like you said, he can still do some really fun things at the position, and he is obviously amplifying the production of everybody around him. The wide receivers are playing better. The offensive line is playing better. He is a guy they like to play with. He obviously, from a motivational aspect and all of that, is a really a big asset. And like I said, the offensive line, just they have a better feel for where he's at in the pocket and how he steps up and his depth on drops. He's easier to block for the wide receivers. Everybody who's out there knows, hey, I could get the football on this route. They're playing harder, better. There's no doubt Jameis is making the people around him on the offense better. It's just the part that he can't control is the run game, and that's not moving in efficiency that it needs to. And then obviously his mistakes have hurt them, in a pretty serious way. And I don't think every mistake is going to be a pick six, but you can certainly see where those mistakes just they really can cripple you. And I think that's just a stigma that's followed him, especially when you hear him talk about, turning to Jesus to get rid of these pick sixes and stuff. He's mentally struggling with it himself. So it's real. He's so talented, though. It's just a matter of like, what can you do to harness the good and like make it so he can try to find a way to mentally avoid the bad. That's really it if you want to stick with him.
Yeah, and the way I explain it with Winston is his arm is so good and he believes in it so much, it gets him into trouble. He just makes some throws that you shouldn't try to make on an NFL field.